From our Denver studios, it's America's Voice Live with Tudor Dixon and Steve Gruber. America's Voice Live.
And you are watching America's Voice Live for Tuesday, December the 8th, 2020. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day. I'm Steve Gruber, along with Tudor Dixon. And Tudor, here's a look at the top stories for today.
The state of Texas has made an unprecedented election chess move, challenging the results of 4 other states. We'll have all the details for you shortly.
A 90-year-old woman gets the first dose of Pfizer's vaccine in the UK, and Americans could be receiving the vaccine in just a few days.
And with shopping days running out before Christmas, patience is also running out as more states hop on the lockdown bandwagon. Michigan being the latest, extending what they had been calling a 3-week pause.
But let's start today with that lawsuit from Texas challenging the results in 4 states for the election of 2020. Ken Paxton, the Attorney General for the state of Texas, filing that lawsuit late yesterday and suggesting that Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Georgia broke the law, making changes to election rules without legislative consent, violating, he says, the United States Constitution. The lawsuit is seeking a temporary restraining order preventing those states from, quote, taking action to certify the presidential electors or to have such electors take any official action, including without limitation, participating in the Electoral College. Now, I want to read one part of this lawsuit for you because it's important. These legislative changes facilitated the casting and counting of ballots in violation of state law, which in turn violated the Electors Clause of Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2 of the United States Constitution, argues Paxton in this lawsuit. By these unlawful acts, the defendant states have not only tainted the integrity of their own citizens' votes, but their actions have also debased the votes of citizens in plaintiff state and other states that remain loyal to the U.S. Constitution. Now, the only time you can appeal directly to the United States Supreme Court, my understanding, talking to legal scholars before the program, is if there is a dispute directly between one or more states, it can go directly to the Supreme Court. No word yet on whether the U.S. Supreme Court will take up this case, but I'll be honest with you, I've never seen such a thing in my lifetime. I don't know how often such a thing has ever happened for one state to challenge another state about the outcome or the results of a presidential or any other federal election for that matter. We'll keep you posted right here. Tudor?
Hey, I think it makes a lot of sense. If you're one state and you think the other states went behind your back and did something to mess up the election for the government that governs all the states, I think it's an interesting idea. It seems a little old school, and old school sometimes is good. But in coronavirus news, the Pfizer vaccine is likely days away from approval here in the U.S. The Food and Drug Administration said Tuesday that data from Pfizer's coronavirus vaccine trials was consistent with recommendations put forth by the agency for an emergency use authorization. The FDA is expected to decide on whether to authorize Pfizer's vaccine within just days now. This is what the Warp Speed director had to say about what would happen once it is approved.
First, and as we continue to stockpile the vaccines, getting them out there to the rest of the American people, we figure that by the end of February, March timeframe, it will be open to all Americans, certainly by April for sure. And we will continue to provide that information to the American public in numerous forums, to include sites such as this.
It sounds like within a few days, somebody in the United States will also be getting the first vaccine, Steve.
Yes, the FDA trials have gone well for Pfizer, both here and across the pond. As you well know, that woman getting the first dose today in the UK is a sign of good things to come for many. But how many Americans will actually take the vaccine? That we'll find out as we move along. Meanwhile, Donald Trump will make it available to Americans before others around the world if they choose to get the vaccine. He's going to sign a coronavirus vaccine executive order prioritizing Americans first over other foreign nations. And he says this is the America First process. Meanwhile, Secretary Alex Azar of Health and Human Services says it is important to make sure that it's available to Americans today. Here's part of what he had to say.
We are getting ready for possible rollouts of vaccine within days, and that's why tomorrow afternoon President Trump is hosting a vaccine distribution summit with many of our governors, our retail pharmacy chains, and our distributors like McKesson, FedEx, and UPS to be very transparent and show the world how comprehensively we have planned out every aspect of this distribution.
Now, I should tell you there's a programming note here, Tudor. That summit, that vaccine rollout summit, is scheduled at 2 o'clock this afternoon. If it gets rolling, we are going to leave America's Voice Live and join that because we think it's probably the most important thing you can hear, the president and the people around him talking about when the vaccine will be available.
And as you mentioned, the first recipient of the coronavirus vaccine in the UK was a grandma, a 90-year-old grandma, Margaret Keenan. She did receive the vaccine early in the morning, and she said it was a wonderful birthday gift because she will turn 91 next week. Take a look.
I thought it was a joke, to tell you the truth, to start with. I couldn't believe it, but I'm happy it's happened. And now I've done it, and hopefully it'll help other people come along and do as I did, try and do the best to get rid of this terrible thing. Yes.
She's adorable. Grandmothers are awesome and definitely deserve to be protected.
Grandmothers with English accents, doubly adorable. I'll give you that, Tudor, no question about that. All right, so as vaccines are rolling out in the UK and anticipated as early as this weekend in the United States, the lockdowns continue in other places in New York, in California, Michigan, the latest, to extend their lockdowns and keep bars and restaurants and bowling alleys and group fitness classes closed down. Governor Gretchen Whitmer extending what she said was a 3-week pause for another 2 weeks. It puts it right on the cusp of Christmas. If this one goes the distance, it'll be December 20th, and let's be honest, nobody really believes it'll end then. These shutdowns, these orders continue to get tougher. More strict demands on people wearing masks in the open, in their own homes. And somewhere right now, Tudor, believe me, there's someone in a mask taking a shower. It's the world we live in 2020 right now. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Here's part of what Governor Whitmer had to say. Yeah, go ahead.
We cannot risk overwhelming our hospitals further, and that's why our hospital systems implored the Department of Health and Human Services to extend the pause. And so we're going to give it 12 more days. We've made progress during this 3-week pause. Cases and mobility have started to level off. But there is more work we need to do to protect.
More work, she says, more work, and that means staying locked down. Nice how her mask matched.
People keep asking, what is the progress? What is the science? Now you have the non-public schools filing a lawsuit in Michigan because they're saying we want our kids to get back to school, and we've school safely. Steve, we've talked about this. It's a frustration across the board. But in other election news, the Arizona Supreme Court will hear a legal challenge to mail-in ballots in Maricopa County filed by the state Republican Party's chairwoman, Kelly Ward. This comes after investigators seized devices from a Fountain Hills residence in a voter data theft case. Investigators seized devices from this home, and an FBI search warrant showed the investigators were looking for the following. They were looking for login credentials and accounts, voter registration records and information, including protected voters' information, the transfer, sharing, or dissemination of voter registration records, and information including protected voters' information. All of this information damaged computer systems so much. But Steve, the most interesting part about this to me is that the raid took place the morning of November 5th. So this was just after the election. This has been in process for quite a while.
Ted Cruz, the outspoken senator from Texas, conservative Republican, says he'll be happy to argue in front of the United States Supreme Court against Act 77 in Pennsylvania if the Supreme Court takes the case. It seems more likely that they will take that case. It's a challenge to the constitutionality of the changes made in election law in the state of Pennsylvania. Ted Cruz, if SCOTUS grants cert In the PA election case, I have told the petitioners I will stand ready to present the oral arguments. I suspect he would. Ted Cruz will be right there fighting against what he considers unlawful election law changes on the cusp of the election in 2020. You're watching America's Voice Live on a Tuesday. We'll be right back. Welcome back to America's Voice Live. I guess the political stakes couldn't be higher today with everything that's going on around the country in 6 states where challenges are still going on, Tudor.
Yes, I've been watching social media, and every time there's a challenge, I see folks on the other side that are just getting so angry and saying absolutely not, look no further. But I think it's actually encouraging other people to say, there must be something here, because now Georgia sheriffs have come out and said, hey, we'll offer our help to investigate these voter fraud claims. So we have the Oconee County Sheriff, and he says, I write to offer the assistance of Oconee County Sheriff's investigators to investigate or follow up on any reported or suspected voter fraud cases, not only in Oconee County, but statewide. Our citizens deserve to have confidence in the election process. Please call on me if there is anything we can do to assist you in resolving these reported allegations. This is Scott R. Berry. A lot of people are getting involved. We just talked about Texas now saying, hey, if everybody wasn't playing fair, we want to take this to the Supreme Court. Well, I want to bring in John Fredericks. He is live out there in Atlanta for us. John, tell us what's going on the ground there in Georgia.
Well, right now, the biggest thing that's happening is there were 4 rogue senators led by Alpharetta State Senator Brandon Beach and Burt Jones from McDonough, who put together a petition, and they went to the Constitution and said they want a special session around the election, just around the election. According to Georgia constitutional law, they don't need 3/5 to get around the governor. They need 50% plus one. So this is the way the math works. I'll tell you the math, and then I'll tell you what they're trying to do, and then I'll say where they are right now, and that is going to fire you up when I get to the third part. So the math is they need 29 out of 34 Republican senators to sign the petition for a special session that revolves only around the coming January 5th election, the runoff between the two Democrats and the two Republican incumbents, Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue. In the House, they would need 91 of 106 Republicans. So they don't need any Democratic votes to get a special session to go around Governor Kemp, Brian Kemp, who has refused to call one. Now, they think they're close in the Senate, but they're not there yet. They were very short in the House. The president yesterday got on the phone. He's a man of action, as you know, Stephen Tudor. He called the Speaker of the House that didn't want to have a special session, David Ralston from Blue Ridge, talked to him for 15 minutes and tried to explain to him how important this was and how critical it is to the runoffs. Because what Trump voters are telling me, if you don't take action in fixing the fraud that went on November 3rd, it's going to happen again. It's going to happen again on January 5th. And so they're upset, and they're saying, we're just going to stay home unless you fix it now. They also want to see action. Now, what the special session would do, it would do three things. Number one, it would nullify the illegal consent decree for the election that was signed by Republican Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, Stacey Abrams, the activist who ran for governor, and the Democratic Party of Georgia. That consent decree was never shared with the General Assembly, nor is it legal. What that consent decree did, it allowed for absentee ballots to be mailed out to everybody. It also allowed for drop boxes where there's no chain of custody. We did 3 stories on it. If you go to georgiastarnews.com, there's no chain of custody. That's number 2. The third thing is there's no signature verification. So if I go to vote in person early or on game day, I have to show my ID, my signature has to match, my address has to match. If you do the mail-in ballot, they don't match anything. You basically mail it in. Now, what they found in November 3rd is there's about 150,000 voters in Georgia that either were not registered, they're underage, they were felons, which is illegal, they're out of state, moved, which is illegal, or they're registered in 2 states, illegal, or they're in a different county and didn't register.
Let me ask you this, John, because this is where I'm confused about all of this. I understand the anger in Georgia and elsewhere where people don't believe the election was fair, that people's thumbs were on it, and that things went on that were not legal. But if the belief is that the Democrats cheated, but the Republicans aren't doing enough to push back, then we won't vote. They cheated, so we surrender. We've only got about 30 seconds here, but that seems like just a terrible idea.
It's not surrendering, Steve. They want action. Newt Gingrich,
you call it what you want. And you call it what you want, but if they don't vote, they're surrendering the United States Senate. You can call it what you want, John, but if they don't vote, they're giving the United States Senate away.
Steve, you're wrong. Steve, you're seeing it the exact upside down. That's like the way the establishment is seeing it in Washington. I'm talking to voters here every day. They want action, action, action. They're not getting it. They want a special session. All you got to do is call a special session. The voters will come out, and these 2 Republicans are going to win. You can't fight what the voters want. That's what Washington and the consultants are trying to do. You're not going to have it done. They want action. Period.
All right, well, and if they don't get it, they're not going to vote. You can call it what you want. I call it a mistake, but We'll see how it plays out, John. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
You can't change that, Steve. The only thing that changes it is they get a special session. That's it. That's what's going to change it.
Thank you, John. Greatly appreciated. John Fredericks here on America's Voice Live on a Tuesday. We'll have more in just a moment. Don't forget, coming up at 2 o'clock, the Vaccine Summit could be on the air here as well. We'll be back.
Welcome back to America's Voice Live. Steve, even though there is a lot going on in Washington with relief bills, election questions, everything else, some people aren't forgetting about Hunter Biden, are they?
They are not, including Congressman Ken Buck. He says there should be a special counsel that looks into all the activities of what Hunter Biden has been up to. Here's a tweet that he sent out. The Justice Department must appoint a special counsel to investigate Hunter Biden's conduct and contents of his laptop. This needs to be investigated free from political interference, no matter who is in the White House. We'll see how that plays out. Joining us now, Terrence K. Williams, joining us here on the program to sort it all out. Terrence, a lot going on, and of course, Hunter Biden still in the headlines. What's going on in Georgia and Texas and Michigan? Man, it's a flurry of activity. It's not over yet, is it?
Well, let's be honest. If Joe Biden was to ever be in office, which I don't think is going to happen, they will not be investigating Hunter Biden. That will not happen under a Joe Biden administration. We all know that. But Hunter needs to be looked into. All the things that's been going on. Listen, if this was Don Jr., somebody would have already appointed a special counsel to investigate Donald Trump Jr. if he was in this situation. But since it's Joe Biden's son, he can get away with murder. He can get away with robbery. He can get away with anything he want to get away with. He can get away with stealing candy from a baby because it's Joe Biden's son. You know what? I guess the same rules do not apply to the Democrats. I guess they don't have to follow the law. I guess they don't have to obey the law. They don't. I mean, you know, I guess they are special. They get special treatment in this country, and it's pretty disgusting. But the American people deserve justice.
I think that's what Congressman Buck is saying, because in his letter to AG Barr, he said this investigation is critical to defending the integrity of our republic and ensuring a potential Biden administration will not be the subject of undue foreign interference. Also goes on to say this could make them the subject of blackmail and undermine our national security. Now, this is something we heard Nancy Pelosi talk about multiple times. If there were any offshore dealings for the Trump companies, that could put the national security of the U.S. at risk. Should this be investigated the same way?
Absolutely, absolutely. We heard Joe Biden say in a video, you know what? He threatened a prosecutor to stop investigating his son, or he would withhold funds. That's blackmailing. They've been blackmailing people. They've been doing this. This is old news to them. This is how they roll. And they need to be investigated. And this is why we cannot have Joe Biden in office. I mean, this man wants to get in office so he can save his son, so he can save all of his crooked friends, including Hillary Clinton and himself. It's absolutely
You
ridiculous.
mentioned Hillary Clinton. You mentioned Hillary Clinton, so I'll mention her as well. I saw her name bantered about as a ambassador to the United Nations. How's that make you feel, Terrence? Hillary Clinton, ambassador to the United Nations.
Oh, she needs to give it up. Hillary, stay in your rocking chair and stay out of politics. Seriously. This woman does not need to get up out of her rocking chair. All she needs to do is wake up in the morning and feed the birds and live her life and stay out of politics. We don't need her and we don't want her.
Well, I'm sure there are some strong Secret Service men out there that would love to carry her up and down the stairs of the nations over in Europe, because we've seen that before. We have seen the slippery slope that Hillary goes down when she is overseas. So we do have to be careful of what she would do with the United Nations. Thank you, Terrence K. Williams. It is always a pleasure to have you on. That's an interesting thought there, Steve, because she does seem to be the politician that just never stops. She's the Energizer Bunny of politics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in a way, but you know, and if you want Republicans to win, send Hillary to Georgia. Have her on the campaign trail. Send AOC to Georgia. These are tried and true ways to get Republicans back fired up. I don't know what's going to happen in Georgia, but sitting it out doesn't seem to be the best approach for Republicans. Sitting it out, then you what? Give it to Chuck Schumer? I'm still confused by that. I'm going to sort it out in my head. When we come back, John Solomon will be here to talk about that Texas lawsuit. Texas challenging the results in 4 other states. It's straight ahead on America's Voice Live. Tudor, as we talked about off the top of the show, Texas has filed lawsuit against Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Georgia, asking the Supreme Court to intervene directly, saying they don't believe the results in those 4 states are appropriate, fair, or accurate, meaning they think that their people have been disenfranchised in Texas. It's a story like I've never heard before, Tudor.
Yes, absolutely. I want to bring in John Solomon to talk to us about it. John Solomon with Just the News. John, is this something that other states have done in the past and we just somehow haven't seen it, or is this completely unprecedented and new?
Oh, this is a Texas-sized surprise for sure. Ken Paxton, the Attorney General in Texas, has decided to use a rare mechanism that allows states that are in a dispute to go directly to the Supreme Court. You can skip the federal court level, the district court level, and the appeals court level, go directly to the Supreme Court. And what he's arguing is the fact that Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Georgia made changes to their election system with unelected and elected bureaucrats and not condoned by their own legislatures violated the Constitution. And if they did it differently and got away with it, it disenfranchises Texas, and therefore he's asking the Supreme Court to invalidate the elections in those 4 states. 1 state taking on 4 states. Pretty novel argument. It has some merit. And there's no doubt that these changes that he's talking about in Georgia, in Pennsylvania, in Wisconsin, and Michigan were done without legislative consent. That is a fact that's not in dispute. Now the question is, will the Supreme Court take a look at it? And might they be tempted to take what Texas has done, combine it with that Pennsylvania lawsuit that Justice Alito is currently considering and looking at, maybe make one big Uber case for the Supreme Court to weigh in with. That'd be the dynamic I'll be watching for.
Yeah, Texas-sized surprise, I think is the way that you put it, John. I think that's exactly right. Ken Paxton is a guy who's got some ethics challenges, so this entire lawsuit was quickly dismissed by many members of the media out of hand. I'm glad you didn't. I'm glad you looked at it, because the merits of what I have read in the complaint seem pretty compelling to me, and they seem to be not partisan issues about process and how you're supposed to change election law and follow the rules. And he argues, as have so many others, that the rules simply were not followed. Do you agree?
I do. Listen, we had on this very network a few weeks ago, we had Alan Dershowitz, who said he thought the argument that the battleground states had changed the rules of the election without going through their legislatures was a very ripe argument for the Supreme Court, something that the Supreme Court would be tempted to take, because it's pretty clear what the Constitution says. The real threshold question will be, can these lawyers in these lawsuits, let's say they get collapsed into one lawsuit before the Supreme Court, can they show that enough votes would have changed that the outcome of the elections could be called into doubt? That's the threshold that, whether it's moot or not, that has to be addressed. And we'll have to wait and see what evidence the lawyers bring in the next phase. But if they win an evidentiary hearing, things like the videotape in Georgia, things like the 250,000 Wisconsin voters who got to vote without going through the normal voter ID this election, those things can be brought in evidence to try to make the case that, listen, there's 20,000 votes separating the candidates in Wisconsin. There's 250,000 votes in dispute. Yes, Justice so-and-so, we do in fact believe there's enough votes in play here to have changed the election. That's the sort of thing that an evidentiary hearing before the Supreme Court could finally bring to the forefront.
It seems as though this is something that there is a good chance the Supreme Court would at least look at, because if you look at just the founding of this country and how the states came together to create these documents that we rule our country by, that we govern our country by, and you look at that all together, you say, this is the President of the United States. This is the highest seat in the land. So every state should have a voice. It seems very likely that the Supreme Court could look at this and say, well, at least we will take it up and hear it. Don't you think?
Well, I think they've given us one clue in Justice Alito, because when you go back to that Pennsylvania case, and that's why I think at the end of the day, this lawsuit in Pennsylvania might get switched together. Alito gave a pre-election order saying, all right, the way you're going to count ballots 3 days after the election is different than the way you've done it. It isn't necessarily sanctioned by the legislature. You need to segregate those ballots in case I want to come back later in the Supreme Court and look at that. That was a clue that Alito himself was concerned that an action had been taken without the legislator's approval. I think he signaled his interest in it. We're going to hear perhaps today, tomorrow, whether Justice Alito believes that the Supreme Court should take that case up now that the election has occurred, that'll be our first clue about how interested the Supreme Court is. And if they take the Pennsylvania case, the issues brought by Ken Paxton in Texas are the same issues, which is things were done without legislative approval. The Constitution says only the legislature can change the way ballots are cast and counted. And I could see those two cases being consolidated into one uber case, and now it puts 4 battleground states into the crosshairs of the Supreme Court.
In fact, those 4 battleground states represent 62 electoral votes. You've probably done the math the same as I have, John.
Yeah.
The question then becomes, if you take those 62 electoral votes off the map, Donald Trump retains the presidency, or does it go to a special election in the House? And my question is this, though. Is it all or none? Could the Supreme Court say, we think that 2 states, Pennsylvania and Georgia, have had problems, Michigan and Wisconsin are okay? Could there be a splitting of these states, or is it take them all or take none of them?
It'll be, if they take all of them in the Texas case, they'll look at all of them, but they could adjudicate each state differently based on the quality of the evidence and the evidentiary hearing, what goes on in that hearing. Let's keep in mind there's a 5th state in play now, because the Arizona Supreme Court yesterday agreed to an expedited review of President Trump's challenge in that state. So you got 4 pending before the Supreme Court potentially, and 1 pending before the Supreme Court of a state Supreme Court in Arizona, all in play. There's enough votes to strip down the lead that Joe Biden has in the Electoral College, bring it below the 270 threshold you need to win the presidency, and in that scenario, it may go to the House. And in the House, President Trump could fare well based on the electoral map. And so, there isn't a scenario where President Trump can get to 270 through the courts, but there is a scenario where Joe Biden falls below 270, and then it's thrown to the House of Representatives to make a final decision, with a contested election decision.
Wow.
And the House of Representatives, then they make the decision on who becomes the next president?
State by state. Each state gets 1 vote. And right now, there are more Republican states with the delegations control than there are Democrats. So in that scenario, it's possible that Donald Trump could fare well if it got to the House. We've seen a lot of people write and bring conjecture about that, but there are more Republican delegations than there are Democratic-controlled delegations in the House right now.
I never really thought we'd get to this point, John, in the conversation where that was an actual possibility. It was always something kind of out there in the ether. But with today's revelations from Ken Paxton, it almost seems like that's a possibility. I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, a lot of things still have to happen, right? We got to see if the Supreme Court's even willing to take it up, which cases they're going to take up, whether they narrow the scope or whether they go in with the same scope. A lot of history still has to be written, but Ken Paxton's lawsuit today really shook up the legal scene, and you now see 4 or 5 states where there's some possibility where Trump supporters can make some gains. We'll just have to let history play out. We'll be covering it here on Real America's Voice and at Just the News all the way through it.
There you go.
Thank you so much,
Thank
John
you, John
Solomon. Always check out everything he does at justthenews.com. It's always a pleasure to have him on. But Steve, it sounds like he's saying what we find out about Texas or about Pennsylvania is really going to give us an idea of what will happen with this Texas lawsuit, which is kind of exciting because that's any moment now, really.
It really is. It seems like if Alito decides to follow through on Pennsylvania, you're more likely to see Texas in this lawsuit in play. Man, it's exciting. That's why you come here every day, America's Voice Live. We'll be right back. You remember here a few weeks ago, Tudor, when the CEO of Goya got up there at the White House, I think it was on the South Lawn, there was an event taking place like the president did on many occasions, and he said nice things about Donald Trump. He said he's doing good work and the economy's going great, and I love it. And then AOC came out and she said, we are going to teach Goya a lesson. Well, that didn't work out exactly. AOC came out and said, we're going to boycott Goya Foods. Well, guess what? She's now the Employee of the Month honorary. They didn't see her in person. Why? Well, apparently sales are up more than 1,000% after AOC made this big fuss, Tudor. You see, the cancel culture didn't work in this particular case.
I know. I wish she would say terrible things about Real America's Voice.
Exactly. Boom. I like that. Yeah, good stuff.
AOC, come on. Step up. Talk about other people. Share the wealth. Anyway, speaking of AOC and Congress, I want to bring in Nicholas Balassi. He's had his own chance to talk to her quite a bit with just the news, but I want to talk to him about stimulus, coronavirus relief, whatever you want to call it. Tell us, Nicholas, what's the latest?
So the latest is there's a formal proposal being developed based on a bipartisan agreement, a framework on $908 billion of stimulus. So they're calling it relief, though, because it lacks the direct payments that a lot of lawmakers wanted to see go out. So right now, the framework that's being developed, according to the lawmakers I've spoken to on the record and some of the staffers that have gone on background, say that it's not going to include these direct payments. So it's going to be a relief package that has all kinds of components in it, almost $1 trillion. But that's shy of what the House Democrats have been pushing for since May.
Yeah, they want $2.5–3 trillion. Heck, they take $25 trillion if they get it, Nick. You know that Nancy Pelosi and Bernie Sanders admitting here in the last couple of days that Democrats openly blocked the skinny stimulus. It was $500 billion. It did include some payments, direct payments to Americans. Now they're going to agree on a $908 billion plan. What is the game here? Was it just to hurt the president? I'm going to guess it probably was, but here we are, $908 billion. That doesn't include direct payments. What does it include?
It includes more money for unemployment insurance. It includes funding for state and local governments. It includes health care funding related to the vaccine, but it doesn't include those direct payments. Now, I think part of the reason it doesn't include the direct payments is you probably recall in May when they tried to put in, and then successfully did, they were talking about putting in a provision that would allow undocumented immigrants who file their tax returns without Social Security numbers with tax IDs, allowing them to qualify for stimulus payments, which was not part of the CARES Act. They got that into the HEROES Act in the House. Republicans opposed it in the House. Republicans in the Senate opposed it. So I think that's part of the reason why you're seeing no direct payment in this new bipartisan framework that's being worked on right now. And I will note that on various issues, immigration is one of them I can think of. Sometimes the one side wants to do a huge comprehensive package that includes everything under the sun. And then the other side says, well, why don't we just take a piecemeal approach and then reform just one part of immigration policy that we can all agree on, and then nothing gets done because both sides can't agree on some large comprehensive package. I think you're seeing that up to date with the stimulus. One side wanted to go big, the other side wanted a measured approach, and then for months, nothing was agreed on.
So, Nicholas, I want to switch gears here to something that recently happened. There was the opening of a new exhibit that displayed and honored this original congressman. So the exhibit is in the United States Capitol. It's named the Joseph Rainey 150 Years. It celebrates the 150th anniversary of the swearing in of former Representative Joseph Rainey of South Carolina, who was the first African American to serve in the U.S. House of Representatives, except the Speaker and Majority Whip James Clyburn left a little something out when they talked about him, did they not?
That's correct. So they put out a press release announcing this new exhibit. And in the press release, the Speaker talks about how Joseph Rainey, the former congressman from South Carolina, his whole story needs to be told, that the American people aren't as familiar as they should be with him, so they dedicated this exhibit to him to celebrate the 150th anniversary of his swearing in. But I'm a student of history, and I know that Rainey was a Republican. So as I'm reading this press release, I'm like, they didn't mention that he was a Republican anywhere in the press release. And then I have some sources who were able to get an early look at the exhibit who said that they looked at it and they don't see any mention of his party affiliation. Not only was he a Republican, he helped found the Republican Party in South Carolina. He was on the executive committee. He was really active in Republican politics in the 1800s. Now, I know the parties have shifted since then on various issues. Obviously, a lot of people in the comment section and stories about history like to point that out, but it's true. But again, it's part of his history, helped found the South Carolina Republican Party. No mention of it. And we're going to maybe dig into this a little bit more as this exhibit gets open and more people get to see it.
Didn't shift that far. The man was a Republican and ought to be credited as such for establishing the Republican Party. Nick, greatly appreciate it. As always, thank you for being here. It just seems like not just an oversight, Tudor, it's a blatant omission. And if your kid doesn't tell you the truth, Tudor, and they leave something big out, do you let that slide?
Exactly. No, I tell them, you're lying to me. An omission is the same as a lie, but they don't, you're right, they don't want the American people to hear this. That's the same reason these things are covered up in our history books, in our schools, and parents are endlessly fighting that. You're watching America's Voice Live. We'll be right back.
I honestly think that if we had pay-per-view behind the scenes, it could make a little extra cheese around here for the holidays, Tudor. Just what goes on in the breaks. Much more entertaining sometimes. In fact, a lot of the time. But so it is.
Yes, well, there's a reason that there are breaks. Anywho, let's move on to our social media question of the day, because it's a big one. I'm a big fan of these movies where people are out in the future and this is what life will eventually be like. Well, this is the future, folks, because I asked you today, Clear Health Pass. Now, Clear is that thing in the airport where you can either be scanned by your fingerprint or your eye, your retinas. So Clear Health Pass and IBM Digital Health Pass apps have already been developed. Will you participate in a Health Pass program? And if not, will you refuse to travel? But it actually goes beyond travel. Listen to the CEO of Clear.
In a post-COVID environment, you're going to see screening and public safety significantly shift, but this time it's beyond airports, right? It's sports stadium, it's retail, as Dana talked about, it's office buildings, it's restaurants. And so while we started with travel at our core, we're a biometric secure identity platform where it's always been about attaching your identity to your boarding pass at the airport, or your ticket to get into a sports stadium, or your credit card to buy a beer. And so now with the launch of Clear Health Pass, it's about attaching your identity to your COVID-related health insights for employers, for employees, for customers. Everybody wants to know that each other's safe to start to reopen businesses and get America moving.
So everyone will scan your pass. Let's just be clear about this. She said restaurants, office buildings, sports venues, retail, everyone will scan your pass. And this can be in your cell phone or, we talked yesterday, eventually maybe in a chip that they insert inside of you.
Now, I agree with the first person here because it's the first thing that leaps to mind is HIPAA. You cannot force people to tell you their health background. Otherwise, is it going to be COVID? Is it going to be AIDS? Is it going to be the flu? What other diseases are you going to be required to put on your fingertips or in your retina scan? And that's what Deepak Bauer says here. Government has no say between you and your doctor. HIPAA laws are there for a reason. We need less government. Stop this. Now, there, I edited it myself. Stop this now.
Well, so the CEO did go on to say, well, we don't actually see your health data. It's all hidden. So they're trying to get around that. But SoulGood21 said, no way. What is there to go do when everywhere else has more restrictions than Texas? Plus, I defend myself at home. Home sweet home just got sweeter. Texas did just get a little sweeter, baby, today for a lot of people, at least a lot of Republicans.
She's just home counting bullets right now. It's all cool. Ozzy 3647 says, sorry, no one should have information on my health, I think they meant to say, but my doctor and myself. The government, the airlines, no one should be privy to my conditions. It's called HIPAA. And I agree with that. Again, because then it's this condition, it's that condition. Where would it end?
Yes. Restless Jan says, now can you see what the response to COVID was all about? I will never comply to this intrusion. And Steve, we talked about this earlier. How do you get away from it if it's going to be everywhere you go? I agree
well,
that this is an overreach.
Yeah, and here's something else. Look at these machines. I understand what Clear machines are. I've used them to fly for a number of years. They're not inexpensive. Clubber says, want to implant a chip in my skull also? Yes. Yes, they do. We'll get back to that. I really don't want to be free to take without everyone knowing. You can monitor my PC, cell phone, and remotely spy through my camera. Flock it. Chip me. I'm your sheep. But do they want to chip me? Yes, Clubber. Yes, that's the plan. Don't kid yourself. We joke about it, but it's serious stuff, Tudor. You mentioned it yesterday.
Yes, this is the next step. That's what these people are out there saying. And they're making you feel comfortable about it because they're telling you it's for your safety. And a lot of people are willing to do something for their safety. Look at what happened after 9/11. You're watching America's Voice Live. We'll be right back.
You're watching America's Voice Live, hour number 2 on a Tuesday. It's December the 8th, 2020. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day. Tudor and I truly appreciate it. In fact, Tudor Dixon is here with me. I'm Steve Gruber, and Tudor, we have some headlines for everybody.
Yes, the state of Texas has made an unprecedented election chess move, challenging the results of 4 other states. We'll have all the details for you shortly.
We certainly will. And a 90-year-old woman gets the first dose of Pfizer's vaccine in the UK. Americans could be receiving a shot in the arm over the next few days.
And with shopping days running out before Christmas, patience is also running out as more states hop on the lockdown bandwagon, Michigan being the latest, extending what they had been calling a 3-week pause.
Yeah, 3 weeks becomes 5 weeks. But let's turn to our top story now. Ken Paxton, the Attorney General in Texas, filing a suit late last night targeting 4 states, Michigan, Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. And he's appealed directly to the United States Supreme Court. He says trust in the integrity of our election processes is sacrosanct and binds our citizenry and the states in this union together. Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin destroyed that trust and compromised the security and integrity of the 2020 election. This lawsuit can be appealed directly to the United States Supreme Court because when there is a dispute between states, in this case, 1 state versus 4, it can go directly to the Supreme Court. I want to read you one part of what Ken Paxton wrote in his complaint to the United States Supreme Court. Certain officials in the defendant states presented the pandemic as the justification for ignoring state laws regarding absentee and mail-in voting. The defendant states flooded their citizenry with tens of millions of ballot applications and ballots in derogation of statutory controls as to how they are lawfully received, evaluated, and counted. Whether well-intentioned or not, these unconstitutional acts had the same uniform effect. They made the 2020 election less secure in the defendant states. They're saying Texas did it right. Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Wisconsin didn't do it right. It's the state legislatures that are supposed to affect election law, and they say those constitutional protections were violated. We'll see what happens from here. Tudor?
Well, in coronavirus news, we tell you as we wait for that coronavirus vaccine summit to start with the president. But right now, I want to tell you that the Pfizer vaccine is likely just days away from approval here in the U.S. The Food and Drug Administration said Tuesday that data from Pfizer's coronavirus vaccine trials was consistent with recommendations put forth by the agency for an emergency use authorization. The FDA is expected to decide on whether to authorize Pfizer's vaccine within just days. This is what the Warp Speed director had to say would happen once the vaccine is approved.
First, and as we continue to stockpile the vaccines, getting them out there to the rest of American people, we figure that by the end of February, March timeframe, it will be open to all Americans, certainly by April for sure. And we will continue to provide that information to the American public in numerous forums, to include the sites such as this.
Open to all Americans by April, but we know, just like the UK is doing, Steve, those will go to the older generation first and first responders.
That's right, in front line. Folks like doctors and nurses will be first in line as well. And the president intends to defend you as an American citizen and making sure that your place in line is at the front before it goes to people in other countries around the world. It's an American first policy from President Trump. He's known for it, of course. And Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar had this to say about prioritizing Americans to get the vaccines.
We are getting ready for possible rollouts of vaccine within days, and that's why tomorrow afternoon President Trump is hosting a vaccine distribution summit with many of our governors, our retail pharmacy chains, and our distributors like McKesson, FedEx, and UPS to be very transparent and show the world how comprehensively we have planned out every aspect of this distribution.
And we are expecting that summit to begin at any moment here, Tudor. We're keeping one eye on the monitor, and when it begins, we will take you there because we think the distribution of the vaccine and everything that's going on right now is extremely important to you, the listeners and the viewers.
Yes, but first I want to take you to the UK, where the first woman did receive the vaccine today. She was a 90-year-old Grandma Margaret Keenan, and she's pretty adorable. See for yourself.
I thought it was a joke, to tell you the truth, to start with. I couldn't believe it, but I'm happy it's happened, and now I've done it, and hopefully it'll help other people to come along and do as I did, try and do the best to get rid of this terrible thing. Yes.
A remarkable thing. In Michigan, the lockdowns continue as they do in so many other states. New York and California and elsewhere seeing these lockdown issues. I'd like to go to Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer because she had this to say when she took a 3-week pause and turned it into a 5-week pause.
We cannot risk overwhelming our hospitals further, and that's why our hospital systems implored the Department of Health and Human Services to extend the pause. And so we're going to give it 12 more days. We've made progress during this 3-week pause. Cases and mobility have started to level off. But there is more work we need to do to protect.
Okay, it looks as though we have the president standing up now at the summit. We're going to go straight to the Warp Speed Vaccine Summit now.
Mike. Great job. We're here to discuss a monumental national achievement. From the instant the coronavirus invaded our shores, we raced into action to develop a safe and effective vaccine at breakneck speed. It would normally take 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, or even more. In order to achieve this goal, we harnessed the full power of government, the genius of American scientists, and the might of American industry to save millions and millions of lives all over the world. We're just days away from authorization from the FDA, and we're pushing them hard, at which point we will immediately begin mass distribution. Before Operation Warp Speed, the typical time frame for development and approval, as you know, could be infinity. And we were very, very happy that we were able to get things done at a level that nobody has ever seen before. The gold standard vaccine has been done in less than 9 months. On behalf of the entire nation, I want to thank everyone here today who has been involved in this extraordinary American initiative. I also want to recognize members of my administration who have worked tirelessly in this effort. Alex Azar, please, Alex. Where's Alex? Thank you, Alex. Great job. Monsef Slawi, where are you, Monsef? Thank you very much. Great job. A man who's now going to be very important, General Gus Perna. I have no doubt about it, right? Logistics. Jared Kushner's worked so hard. Where's Jared? Jared, wherever you may be. Thank you, Jared. Dr. Deborah Birx. Deborah? Thank you very much, Deborah. Admiral Brett Guar. Where is Brett? Great job you've been doing, Brett. Surgeon General Jerome Adams. Jerome, thank you very much. Terrific. Dr. Robert Redfield. Robert, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Administrator Seema Verma. Seema, thank you. Dr. Peter Marks. Peter? Where's Peter? Thank you. Paul Mango, Adam Bowler, and Brad Smith. Thank you very much. Great job. Thank you all very much. Incredible job. And many others also. Many, many others. We're also grateful to be joined by Governors Greg Abbott. Where's Greg? Bill Lee. Bill? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Bill. Ron DeSantis. Ron. Thank you, Ron. Thank you. Thank you very much. Great job, Ron. And John Bell Edwards. John Bell. Thank you. Thank you, John Bell. Thank you very much. As well as Senator John Barrasso, who's a fantastic doctor also, by the way, I have to say. When I need info on that subject, I call up John. Thank you, John, very much. Senator Steve Daines, congratulations on a great win. Great win. That was easier than you thought, it turned out, right? It was a little easier than you thought. Great going. We're proud of you. Congressman Greg Walden. Greg, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And Congressman Brad Wenstrup. Thank you, Brad. Great job. And many, many others. My administration provided a total of $14 billion to accelerate vaccine development and to manufacture all of the top candidates in advance, long in advance. As a result of this unprecedented investment, we are exceedingly proud that both Pfizer and Moderna have announced that their vaccines are approximately 95% effective, which is a number that nobody expected to be able to get to, far exceeding anything that really that anybody thought. We went out and we said, what do you think a maximum would be? And I think, doctors, we all came up to the conclusion that something like that would be really incredible. We have other candidates looking right now. We have some big ones that we're going to be announcing very soon. We have some companies, great companies out there you all know about, Johnson & Johnson and others, and they're all coming in, and they're coming in very quickly. We expect to have some news on that very shortly. And we have worked very well with the companies, but if for any reason we have any problems, we will be instituting the Defense Production Act, and we will make sure that we don't have any problems for very long. We've instituted it before. 2 additional companies, AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson. As you know, the Johnson & Johnson's a one-dose, one-shot vaccine, so we're going to see how that works. That would be very helpful if that all came out, and I think it probably will. Also, they're showing tremendous promise, all of them, tremendous problem. We're very hopeful that the FDA will authorize the Pfizer vaccine within days. We've got to get it moving. And Moderna vaccine almost immediately thereafter. Large numbers of tests and samples have been done, so hopefully that'll go very quickly. If authorized, tens of millions of vaccine doses will be available this month. And we'll get it distributed very quickly. We'll have that all set, and hundreds of millions more will quickly follow. Every American who wants the vaccine will be able to get the vaccine. And we think by spring we're going to be in a position that nobody would have believed possible just a few months ago. Amazing, really amazing. They say it's somewhat of a miracle, and I think that's true. The plan we put forward prioritizes the elderly and patients with underlying conditions, as well as healthcare workers and first responders. The ultimate decision rests with the governors of the various states, and I hope the governors make wise decisions who will decide where the vaccines will go in their state and who will get them first. We urge the governors to put America's seniors first, and also I think those who work with seniors, which obviously you're going to have to do that. I think they have to go together. And doctors, nurses, first responders, etc. This will quickly and dramatically reduce deaths and hospitalizations, and within a short period of time, I think we want to get back to normal. It's a very standard phrase. We want to just get back to normal, get back to where we were a little more than 9 months ago. We're doing incredibly. And in many respects, we're still doing incredibly with our stock markets and everything else, which are hitting all new highs. We've already finalized a partnership with Walgreens and CVS, whose executives join us today. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much. We appreciate it very much. And they will deliver vaccines directly to nursing homes as soon as the states request that they do so. Later today, General Gus Perna will outline the detailed plan to rapidly distribute the vaccine to every state, territory, and tribe. States have designated over 50,000 sites that will receive the vaccine. We've worked very closely with the states. Actually, we've had very good relationships with the governors. I almost think all of the governors, at least in those conference calls that are somewhat secret, other than sometimes on occasion, Mike, the press will break in, which is fine too. It's amazing how you leave those rooms and about 10 seconds later, there wasn't even time for a leak. They were on the call. That's all right. So you assume that. You always assume that. But they'll be going through pharmacies, hospitals, healthcare providers. Through our partnership with FedEx, UPS, and McKesson, we'll ship doses from warehouses directly to the designated sites, and we're thrilled to be joined by representatives of those really great American companies. Those companies have worked with us, and they've been incredible to work with, and I want to thank you all for being here. Please, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. As I've stated all along, and I guess as you saw pretty vividly, I heard about what they were going to show prior to my coming. You saw that very few people thought that this was possible. Of course, they'll be saying now, we always told you it was so, but we have them saying a little bit different. But it has been incredible, and it will end the pandemic. It will end the pandemic, and we're working with other nations. As you see, actually, by looking at your screen today, we're working very closely with other nations also to get the vaccines out to other nations. And that's very important. We work with the world. We're working with the world. We have great companies, and we're working with the world. In just a few minutes, I'll sign an executive order to ensure that the United States government prioritizes the getting out of the vaccine to American citizens before sending it to other nations. Now, if necessary, I told you we'll invoke the Defense Production Act, but we don't think it'll be necessary. If it is, it's a very powerful act, as you know, because we've used it very, very successfully. While we begin to swiftly deploy the vaccine, we'll continue to expand the availability of groundbreaking therapies. Since April, advances in treatments have already helped reduce the mortality rate by 85%. Think of that, 85%. It's an incredible number. I've delivered on my solemn promise to make the antibody treatments, they're brilliant, they're highly successful, available to every American, and we're doing that free of cost, totally free of cost. So we're making them available, and they're available now. And if someone gets sick, it works where they go and they get treatment if that's what the doctors are prescribing. And it's been incredible, the success. And when you hear 85%, that's some number. To me, that's a number that goes along with anything else, including the vaccines, when you think about it, as well as we've done with the vaccines. When you hear 85%, people find that one hard to believe. But you look at the stats and you see what's happening. And you look at other countries. They're having tremendous difficulties in Europe, tremendous, relatively beyond what we're having. They're having them all over the world. But this will vanquish the problem, this horrible scourge, as I call it, the China virus, because that's where it came from. And the virus has really been looked at and studied all over the world, and our scientists, our industrial and economic mobilization has been like nobody else in the world could have done. And it's very important that we share that with others and other nations. I've worked and invoked the Defense Production Act over 100 times to manufacture essential supplies in the United States, despite the grim projections from the media 8 months ago where they said this was impossible. They actually said, and you saw that a little bit, but I could give you 2 hours worth of it, but they said it will never happen. You could never do it. It was a pipe dream. But we did something that nobody thought was possible, and we also did it where no American who has needed a ventilator has been denied a ventilator. When this first came out, we weren't equipped for that. Nobody was equipped for that. And we're now making ventilators, and we have all we need in this country, but we're sending them to countries all over the world. And we're making thousands and thousands of ventilators a month. The United States has also created the largest, most advanced, and most innovative testing program in the world by far. We've conducted over 200 million tests. Think of that, 200 million tests, more than all of the European Union combined. It's not even close. Just 10 months ago, none of these innovations even existed. The tremendous progress that we've made is a testament to what our nation is capable of. When America is faced with a challenge, we come through, and we always come through to overcome every hardship and surmount every obstacle. And I think you'll be seeing that over the next few months. The numbers should skyrocket downward. We are the most exceptional nation in the history of the world. Today, we're on the verge of another American medical miracle. And that's what people are saying. People that aren't necessarily big fans of Donald Trump are saying, whether you like him or not, this is one of the greatest miracles in the history of modern day medicine or any other medicine, any other age of medicine. American companies were the first to produce a verifiably safe and effective vaccine. Together, we will defeat the virus, and we will soon end the pandemic, and we will save millions and millions of lives, both in our country and all over the world, and we've already started. Thank you again to every person here today, and for the incredible achievements that you've done. You're going to be very proud of this day, and you're going to be very proud of this period of time, because nobody thought this was possible. Nobody thought it was even remotely possible to do what we've done in a period of less than 9 months, something that just not even thinkable. And we took a lot of heat when we said this is our goal, and we frankly weren't even quite using the numbers that we used. We far exceeded what we thought. If we would have said sometime next year, I think most people would have said that would be great, that would be a miracle. But we did it long before sometime next year. So now I want to ask several leaders who have been crucial in this effort to join me on stage as I sign the executive order to ensure that American citizens have first priority to receive American vaccines. And then we're going to be working with other countries all over the world. And I think we'll be able to start doing that almost immediately also, because we have millions of doses coming in. So thank you very much. Thank you. It's a great honor.
So, let's see here. I guess we have to do our vice president. Right? Spread that around. Spread the wealth. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
Any questions, please? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Any questions, please? Question? Yes, please.
Mr. President, it's clearly a success, this vaccine. I'm wondering what your message is to the American people, given all the increasing cases right now, about what they should do over Christmas and the hardship that they're all facing as this virus does get worse.
Yeah, well, CDC puts out their guidelines, and they're very important guidelines. But I think that the vaccine was our goal. That was number one, because that was the way it ends. Plus, you do have an immunity. You develop immunity over a period of time. And I hear we're close to 15%. I'm hearing that, and that is terrific. That's a very powerful vaccine in itself. And just tremendous progress has been made. One of the reasons we do show so many, and I say this and I've been saying it for a long time, so many cases is because of the fact that we have 200 million tests. And you take, I think India is actually in second place with just a fraction of that number. So we're many times greater than the second country. And India has 1.4 billion people, where our testing program has been incredible. And we actually are also coming out with new tests very shortly that will make the process even easier. And you won't need doctors necessarily to do the tests. So we have some incredible tests coming out in a very short period of time. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, some of these scientific officials here in this room have encouraged Americans not to travel this holiday season, not to go to large gatherings. across the street, you've been holding holiday parties with hundreds of people, many not wearing masks. Why are you modeling a different behavior to the American people than what your scientists tell us?
Well, they're Christmas parties, and frankly, we've reduced the number very substantially, as you know. And I see a lot of people at the parties wearing masks. I mean, I would say that I look out at the audience at those parties, and we have a lot of people wearing masks, and I think that's a good thing. Yeah, please, over here, go.
The next administration will be the one ultimately that implements a lot of the distribution of this vaccine and will oversee much of the future of the way Operation Warp Speed goes forward. Why not include members of the Biden transition team as part of this summit that you're hosting today?
Well, we're going to have to see who the next administration is, because we won in those swing states, and there was terrible things that went on. So we're going to have to see who the next administration is. But whichever the next administration is will really benefit by what we've been able to do with this incredible science, the doctors, all of the people that came up, the lab technicians. The work that's been done is incredible, and it will be incredible for the next administration. And hopefully the next administration will be the Trump administration, because you can't steal hundreds of thousands of votes. You can't have fraud and deception and all of the things that they did and then slightly win a swing state. And you just have to look at the numbers, look at what's been on tape, look at all the corruption, and we'll see. You can't win an election like that. So hopefully the next administration will be the Trump administration, a continuation, which has led us to the highest stock markets we've ever had, the best employment numbers we've ever had, a rebuilt military. If you look at the tax reductions are the greatest in history, the regulation reductions, the greatest in history. It leads us to Space Force, which nobody thought was possible. All of the things we've done, and we were rewarded with a victory. Now let's see whether or not somebody has the courage, whether it's a legislator or legislatures, or whether it's a justice of the Supreme Court or a number of justices of the Supreme Court. Let's see if they have the courage to do what everybody in this country knows is right. I received almost 75 million votes, the highest number of votes in the history of our country for a sitting president, 12 million more than the 63 million we received 4 years ago. President Obama received 3 million less in his second term, and he won easily. I received 12 million more, which, by the way, is a record, 12 million more. And they say that when the numbers came out, and the numbers came through machines, and all of those ballots were taken away and added. All you have to do is turn on your local television set, and you'll see what happened, with thousands of ballots coming out from under tables, with all of the terrible things you saw. All you have to do is take a look, and if somebody has the courage, I know who the next administration will be. And I'll tell you what, life will be much easier for this country because of what we've done right now. And because of a lot of the people in this room, the job you've done on the vaccine, together with a lot of others, has been a modern-day miracle. And it's really been acknowledged as such. And I want to thank you. I want to give you my love. And I want to give you my thanks, because you're very special people. And now, good luck. You distribute that, General, and really set records, okay? Set records just like we've been doing for 4 years. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
You've been watching President Trump deliver statements and took a few questions as well there at the vaccine summit in Washington today, talking about the success of how fast they got vaccines ready for the American people and for the world, frankly, from Pfizer and Moderna. Johnson & Johnson's vaccines coming expected after the first of the year. Obviously, the president very pleased about what he has done with the vaccine, and then pointing out that he believes still today that he will be the man in the next administration, talking about the swing states there, Tudor. Obviously a point of contention. We saw that Texas lawsuit come late last night from Ken Paxton, challenging 4 states on the results of their elections. So a lot to unpack here.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit more about the coronavirus vaccine. So I want to bring in Dr. Tom Borelli to have that discussion. Tom, thank you for joining us. You saw what the president was saying. He, of course, is touting the time and the fact that this is going to help the entire world. But he also said that once this is out, it's over. Do you believe that that is the case? Once the vaccine is out, that coronavirus is over?
Well, certainly, the vaccine is really this big solution to this very highly contagious virus that, the pandemic that has infected the world because of China. Let's not forget that. And vaccines over the decades have shown to stop infectious diseases. Just think of polio has been eradicated, smallpox. So these are the things that we need, the vaccine. And I have to tell you, it really is nothing less than really a real medical miracle. The fact that we were able to develop a vaccine, as President Trump said, that's over 90% effective in about 8 or 9 months. That is frankly unheard of. And of course, I'm disappointed with the anti-Trump media because right off the bat, they're trying to bait President Trump or this or that and not really give him any credit for what his leadership has done. He gave these companies really incentives. He's paid for this vaccines for the production even before they were approved, taking the risk out of it for these innovators really to dive in and do the research that they needed. This is really a day to celebrate.
Thank you, Tom. We are having a technical issue, so we're going to have to let you go, and we will come back to you later. Steve? I wasn't able to hear what he had to say about the vaccine. I don't think you were able to hear either, but it does seem interesting that the president is coming out and saying that that means that the coronavirus is over. A lot of those folks in the audience, though, those reporters, they were nicer than I'd seen in the past, but they said, if this means that it's over, that's great, but what do we do from here until then? And the president was very measured with his response, I thought. What did you think?
I thought he was as well. I thought the president, in a way, was taking a victory lap there, Tudor. He was talking about the success. He said he loved all the people on his team that made it possible. Now, you remember, it was January the 13th when the president made his first effort to say, we need a vaccine. That was more than 2 weeks before he cut off flights from China, more than 2 months before he declared a national emergency. In fact, before any Americans had actually died with any relation to COVID-19, he was already on the path to asking for a vaccine to be pursued, and now that has turned into an incredible amount of success. As we know today, a 90-year-old woman in the UK took the first dose of that Pfizer vaccine. Of course, it was created in part with a partnership with a UK company, and so you see that happening. We expect vaccines, shots in arms, to begin this weekend in the United States. Next week, Moderna is asking for their approval to come on the 17th of December. So if you look at this in the big picture, that means that before Christmas, in the same year before Christmas, 2 vaccines are available to the American public. Millions of doses are ready to go. That has been coordinated with shipping companies around the country. You heard the president mention that. Plus, the United States military will also be involved with distribution of these vaccines. These vaccines are already prepackaged, pre-dosed. They're ready to go. They're just waiting for the green light to send them out. And as I've mentioned a couple of different times, Johnson & Johnson says that they will have a single-shot vaccine available after the first of the year. The Pfizer vaccine and the Moderna vaccine are both 2 shots. You take one and then you get a booster shot, if you will, 21 to 28 days later. So the question that was asked, Tudor, and I think it's an important one, what do we do between now and then? One of the reporters asked that. The fact of the matter is, keep people safe. You have to make sure the most vulnerable among us, the seniors, those that have compromised immune systems, those getting chemotherapy, things of that nature, need to be protected from this virus while they roll out the vaccine. And so I guess the president, pretty upbeat, again, taking a bit of a victory lap, although I guess it's a lot like waiting for the pickup, waiting for the rescue ship to arrive. This could be the most draining time for a lot of Americans, waiting for the vaccine while you're in that vulnerable spot.
I would say that that question was really directed toward, well, are you going to tell the American people that you have to stay locked down? Now, if you remember yesterday, we had that video of the woman who was outside of her restaurant in California saying, hey, I'm outside of my restaurant in California. And it was a very emotional video. She was crying. She was pointing out the fact that there was a movie studio across the street that was setting up tables and chairs for lunch. Well, interestingly, NBC ran this story. I think we have the video here. I want to just replay that so you can understand what I'm talking about, and then I'll explain to you what happened behind the scenes. Here it is.
Everything I own is being taken away from me, and they set up a movie company right next to my outdoor patio, which is right over here.
Now, NBC, they played this video so that you could not see the movie company. You could not see what was happening behind the scenes here. That's because, Steve, that is NBC's lot. And so what was happening is that the folks that were shooting in the NBC studios, they were allowed for some reason to set up all of their tables and have all of their food out there and be able to eat right across the street from this restaurant. People are fed up, Steve. They're very upset about this. You have Cuomo and de Blasio coming out and saying they're considering more shutdowns as well. In fact, if we have that video, I'd like to show you them talking because, you have to remember, Steve, that this is an potentially Emmy award-winning governor here. I think we have a video of him that he might be.
I laugh every time you say that. I laugh every time you call him the Emmy award-winning governor, only because it's so embarrassingly ridiculous. Anyhow, carry on.
He loves it, though, because, you have to listen to this.
I think your voice on saying that the vaccines are safe would be important. I said that as soon as the vaccine is deemed ready and safe, I'll be the first one to take a vaccine. Maybe we enlist you. I'll do it with you. We'll do an ad telling New Yorkers it's safe to take the vaccine. To put us together. We're like the modern day De Niro and Pacino. You can be whichever you want. You can be the De Niro or Pacino.
This is the Godfather. He's coming out and he's giving us his best acting. He's actually going to do an ad for us, Steve. We can see him acting in an ad. So maybe he can win another award for the ad, and he's going to be what Pacino and Fauci will be De Niro. It is amazing that he's actually going to act for us about something as important as coronavirus.
The fact that Andrew Cuomo got an Emmy for his press conferences is an embarrassment to the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. It really is. The National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences should be ashamed of itself for handing out an Emmy to a guy who sentenced elderly people to go back into nursing home and long-term care facilities, many of whom did not survive, thousands, in fact. To do that is an embarrassment to the NATAS, and I should say that they should retract that award. They won't, because they have no shame, because they're all in these little cliques together. The fact of the matter is Andrew Cuomo dropped the ball. He dropped the ball badly, and it cost lots of people dearly in ways that they will never recover. And so for him joking around the way he is to me, frightful. And Anthony Fauci will be he'll be in one administration, maybe not the other. We'll see what happens as we go forward. If Donald Trump's right about what he said at the end of his comments just a few minutes ago, he will still be in the White House come January 21st, 2021. We'll see how it all plays out, Tudor. But I find it distasteful, to say the least, that the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences handed out an Emmy to this clown.
Well, I think it's interesting what you say about the president today coming out and saying that this election may not be over, because a lot of people after his speech at the rally in Georgia said, well, he's clearly handing it over. And you have to wonder if this new court case from Texas has given the president maybe a little shot in the arm, no pun intended, at the vaccine summit, to say that he is considering that he may actually have another run.
back to it on a Tuesday. It is the 8th of December, 2020. Starting to feel like December around here, too, Tudor. I can feel winter in the air.
Yes, it is starting to be winter here in Michigan, but sometimes it's winter here in October, so we've been a little bit lucky this year. I don't know what the weather is like at our D.C. studios, but I do want to head out there right now to Carrie Sheffield with Just the News. Carrie?
Hey there, Tudor. Yes, you can hear that sound from attorney Richard Roth. He says that the 12th Amendment, the article that I looked at here on justthenews.com, it's looking at some analysis from law professors who say that, yes, Vice President Pence could reject some electors. In this scenario, for example, when counting the Pennsylvania electors, Pence could hypothetically choose to count the slate of electors from the Republican legislature in Harrisburg and not the slate of electors from Democratic Governor Tom Wolf. You saw Richard Roth there saying he doesn't think that's possible. He said technically it might be plausible if today wasn't the safe harbor day and if it doesn't appear that right now these states are going to continue to have their certification process. He said if there was more contested certifications, then this theory, this legal theory that was put out by two law professors might have more weight. You can see the president's legal team. They are certainly looking at every angle, looking at every tone to unturn it. But under this theory, the vice president is the president of the Senate. And if you look at the language, it says that the president, the vice president, and the president of the Senate shall count the electors. And the interpretation about what that means by count, about whether they should have some active role about counting what is countable or not countable or fraudulent or not fraudulent, that's never really been tested. And these professors are saying it's something that could be worth looking into. Of course, we're going to keep you posted at justthenews.com.
Thank you, Carrie. You can catch Carrie's show, Just the News AM, Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Steve, I wanted to tell you something that I think is going to be important for you. You might have to start practicing up. You talk about our breaks all the time, and our breaks are funny and adorable because, of course, I'm there to make you laugh and smile. But what you may not know about Steve is that he loves to break dance. So, Steve, this is what it's like in our breaks. That's exactly what he does, just exactly like that. So now you can officially break dance in the Olympics because as of Monday, it is an official Olympic sport. So there you go. That'll be you in 2024 in Paris. So I'll be there to watch you and your breakdancing moves.
Oui, Paris. These guys are rookies. That's the best they got? Come on. That's the best you got, son. You better bring your A game if you want to break dance with me. Okay, I'm kidding about that. If I did that, there'd be breaking, all right, of bones and joints. Pride would be broken everywhere. Yeah. I was 25 once.
Break dancing is a young man's sport, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. Like I said, I was 25
So maybe not the Olympics for you, but
yesterday.
You can train your son. So anyway, I do want to talk about Safe Harbor Day because you just heard Carrie Sheffield talking about Safe Harbor Day, and December 8th today is Safe Harbor Day. It is the legal deadline for Congress to count the electoral votes from all 50 states and the District of Columbia in order for them to be protected from lawsuits. The law comes from the Electoral Vote Act of 1877, which prohibits the challenge in Congress to state electors certified by this day. And it is 6 days before the Electoral College meets to vote for the president. That's right. We are that close to that day. So on December 14th, that is next Monday when that will be happening. But as we all know, if there was ever a contested U.S. presidential election, this is it. This is the one. President Trump and his legal team are contesting 6 states. They are Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Minnesota, Nevada, and Wisconsin. If any state is not certified by December 8th, today, they have until December 14th, but they cannot claim protection under the Safe Harbor law. And for President Trump and his legal team, their last resort is to petition the Supreme Court, which is expected. We now have this interesting situation with Texas also. So today is an important day, but here are the next important dates that we'll also be keeping track of. December 14th, next Monday, the Electoral College Day. This is when all of the electors will vote for president and vice president. Sunday, January 3rd, the new Congress convenes and is sworn in. Wednesday, January 6th, Congress counts electoral votes for an official winner for president if there is no official winner called this day. Monday, January 11th is considered overtime. This is when Congress meets once again to count electoral votes for an official winner. If it cannot do so, then the 12th Amendment comes into play. The House picks the president and the Senate picks the vice president. Then finally, Wednesday, January 20th, Inauguration Day. So there's still a ways to go, and from the looks of it, we may just see the 12th Amendment used for the second time in our nation's history. The first and last time was in 1825. Steve, what do you think about that?
I was younger then.
Breakdancing.
By the way, I do have some breaking news out of Michigan in these ongoing efforts and lawsuits. Of course, we all heard about Antrim County, Michigan. 6,000 votes that were cast for President Trump were awarded to Joe Biden before that mistake became blatantly obvious to anybody looking at the map. An attorney, Matt DiPerno, and his client were able to sue the county and get access to the Dominion voting machines. There was a comprehensive deep dive done on those machines by a 7-member team on Sunday. And now the Secretary of State and the Attorney General in Michigan say they might be trying to intervene in the case. They say that the Attorney General is concerned with the imaging that was done and a lack of comprehensive protective orders in this case. It sounds to me like they're getting a little nervous. They don't want to know how the sausage was made. We'll see how this plays out. This just coming across my desk moments ago. You're watching America's Voice Live. just remember, Tudor, be careful what you wish for, because you just never know when it might happen. Keep that in mind. You see the smart aleck thing she says during the break, I'm telling you, we're going to get a behind-the-scenes camera here. It'll be more fun.
It is
Tudor's been doing a fabulous job. Hold on, I'm here to give you a compliment. Just hold on. The compliment is this. You've been doing a great job interacting with the folks watching the program, putting out social media questions that have really elicited some great, emotional, honest responses from people all over the country, and we appreciate you watching Real America's Voice. We truly do. And Tudor, you're just, well, frankly, nailing it. How about that?
Oh, that was very nice. I'm still, in my mind, I'm still thinking about the fact that right before we opened this segment of the show, I'm pretty sure I heard one of our directors in my ear tell me they were a breakdancer for 10 years. And now that's all I can think of. I have to see some of this. We might actually have to put this on the show, because if that's the truth, then I want to see that breakdancing. Okay, but yes, the question, I love the fact that our audience gets so involved. This one was a lot of emotion involved in this one. And so I encourage people to go to our Parler and Twitter accounts and read other people's comments, because they're right there. I'm at Tudor Dixon. Steve is at Steve Gruber Show. But this one, I think it's emotional for all of us because we're Americans. We're used to our freedoms. I said Clear Health Pass and IBM Digital Health Pass apps have already been developed. Will you participate in a Health Pass program? If not, will you refuse to travel? And if you're confused about what a Health Pass is, I want you to listen to the CEO of Clear. Clear are those machines that they use in the airports. Here it is.
In a post-COVID environment, you're going to see screening and public safety significantly shift, but this time it's beyond airports, right? It's sports stadium, it's retail, as Dana talked about, it's office buildings, it's restaurants. And so while we started with travel at our core, we're a biometric secure identity platform, where it's always been about attaching your identity to your boarding pass at the airport, or your ticket to get into a sports stadium, or your credit card to buy a beer. And so now with the launch of Clear Health Pass, it's about attaching your identity to your COVID-related health insights for employers, for employees, for customers. Everybody wants to know that each other's safe to start to reopen businesses and get America moving.
So just so clear, Steve, this is not just to get into your airplane or to get into your favorite stadium. This is now your life. Everything, restaurants, office, everything.
Every place you go. The problem that I see here is the expense involved. But folks, they're just not buying it. Corey Elise, it's just another way for them to control the population and get people ready to give up their privacy and thought. I think there's a lot of truth there. Just get people prepped to give up their freedom. Reminds me of that Tom Cruise movie. He walks into this store and it says, "Hello, Mr. Smith," whatever he says, because it recognizes his eyes. Do you want your favorite pants that you bought before? That sort of thing it scares the daylights out of me.
Yes, and our Lunello, I'm assuming that's how you say it, I don't know. We will not fly anymore if this is the case. RV sales will probably double and triple. That's probably right. But again, I'm thinking, I even thought about this earlier. Are you going to go to the RV park and they're going to ask you for your biometrics card?
Probably. The movie's Minority Report. It comes to me now. That's how good I am. Let's see, yes. Barnum separated from Bailey. This is becoming creepier and creepier by the day. I feel like I'm living in a weird dystopian novel. Or a bit of a circus. There's a lot of truth to that. Yeah, they start scanning your eyes. I mean, I've used Clear. It's how you go to the airport. It's much easier. Go.
Yes, this is name hidden. This is a private user. If they had the vaccine, then they must be safe from people who won't take it. No, I won't travel if a vaccine card is required. That's true. If you have the vaccine, then you're safe, so you should be okay. I mean, it should be that people get to choose if they want the vaccine, and if they don't, they don't.
Gonna have to drive, I guess. That's the bottom line. Besides, you can get all your stuff in your truck. I know, I travel all the time. You know, you got everything you need, your flashlight, your pocket knife, everything, Tudor. I think people have answered. Tomorrow's question, you have to follow Tudor, at Tudor Dixon, to find out more. The National Pulse, straight ahead on America's Voice.